Hello and welcome to NJ Biz Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Kanige. My guest today is Dan Silverman. He is the co-founder and CEO of Balcony, which is a property technology company based in Hoboken. Dan, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you taking the time. Now, as I understand it, and I actually may not understand it, what Balcony has developed is an asset registry that uses blockchain and artificial intelligence to store land and property data, which makes that information more secure and less vulnerable to cyber threats. That's probably a simplistic explanation, so I'm going to ask you how you what your view of your company is and where you fit into the scheme of things in terms of real estate and information technology.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you did a really good job nailing it.
Okay.
That's pretty much what we do. Our mission is to modernize the world's property infrastructure by using new technology like blockchain and AI to bring land records and the legal process of conveying ownership on chain.
Okay.
There's a lot of benefits to the blockchain, which I could explain in a minute. I know
Okay.
that's usually what confuses most people. There's a lot of different, preconceived notions about what blockchain is, what crypto is. So I think it's helpful just right off the bat to explain the difference. Cryptocurrency is an application of blockchain, but blockchain doesn't need a cryptocurrency to operate. There's other functions that blockchain is really good at. So what the blockchain is a good application of, it's good at demonstrating transfers of ownership. So you could see kind of where the parallel is. If you think about like what the blockchain does, is it keeps this digital ledger of transfers. So like I buy a Bitcoin, I sell it, that gets recorded in this digital ledger, and that ledger is distributed. So thousands of computers are looking at that ledger in real time. So nobody could manipulate the information there because if somebody did, it would no longer be compatible with everybody else's computer. So that's what provides immutability, which is a big word
Okay.
that's used in blockchain. That just essentially means that any tampering is evident. So you can't manipulate information, you can't change information. What you're looking at is accurate. It hasn't been changed in any way and it's transparent to everybody. And if you think about what the chain of title is and what the function of the county recorder is when they're recording, what they're doing is recording transfer of title,
Transfers. Yeah,
transfer of
sure.
ownership.
Yeah.
But the way they're doing it is not immutable. It's not transparent. It's reliant on aging legacy software that has vulnerabilities. They're vulnerable to cyber attacks, like you mentioned. Ransomware attacks are increasing by 100% year over year by some estimates, and it's only going to get worse, especially in this era of AI. It's never been easier to spin up fraudulent documents. And we're entering an era where it'll be impossible to tell what's real and not, if not for the blockchain, because the blockchain allows you to tell where something originated from, that something's an authentic original record, and it's able to preserve it in a way that's permanent and transparent and immutable.
Okay. All right. And that's actually was the next thing I was going to ask you because yes, I think most of our viewers probably when they hear blockchain, what if they think of anything, they think of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. And I was going to ask you how they should think about blockchain in this context. And what I hear you saying is that it's that transfer that you're recording, and it's not something that's easily broken into, I guess is the bottom line. Or
Yeah.
is it that when you see it immediately if someone does try to break into it? I'm
It's
not clear on the distinction there.
it's both. It's both.
Okay.
So it's very difficult to break into it. If you wanted to, let's say, change the Bitcoin ledger in some way,
Mhm.
you would need to own 51% of the network. So that means you have to own 51% of all Bitcoin, which is impossible. It has,
Okay.
$1.4 trillion market cap. Half of Bitcoin isn't available for sale, the supply. So it basically is impossible to manipulate or change information. Um, in a smaller blockchain, if someone were able to do that and change information, it would be immediately evident that somebody changed the information that everybody's looking at.
Hmm.
So it helps in both regards. And by doing that, it's also about like preserving that data integrity. Data gets lost all the time through not just hacks, but also through like natural disasters.
Sure.
You'd be surprised how many counties are still in paper. Even if they're not in paper, they just have all their data on one computer. And if there's a flood, a fire, whatever, that data is lost. So we're entering a very vulnerable era. Besides all the AI threats and natural disaster threats, there's also the threat of a bad actor like hacking into the system, not looking for ransom. Usually they hack in and they ask for money in exchange for their data back, but just to create chaos. If you don't
Mhm.
know who owns what, property can't
Right.
trade. If you don't know what liens are on what properties, property can't trade. So there's been instances where these systems have been blacked out and it stopped real estate transactions in their tracks for a month, 2 months, etc. And that problem is only going to get worse unless we start beefing up the infrastructure today.
Okay. All right. Well, as someone who has spent a lot of time working through property records, it doesn't surprise me at all that a lot of places still use paper. Makes it very difficult to find things. Tell me how you got into this side of it, because if I recall correctly, your background is in real estate development. How did you were you interested in blockchain and Bitcoin and those kinds in cryptocurrency, and decided that this was a more fruitful path for you, or a more interesting path? How did you get into this side of it?
Yeah, that's basically how it happened. So I've been
Okay.
in real estate my entire life. My father's a large developer in the Northeast. He had me on construction sites when I was 15, just kind of learning the business. I shadowed him. I took over his book of business when I got out of college. He was in the process of retiring, and around 2017, I just got interested in Bitcoin. That's when I bought my first Bitcoin. That's when I started just investing in cryptocurrency, dabbling and exploring what it actually means. And the more I learned about blockchain, the more I realized that that infrastructure could be used to replace a lot of the gaps and some of the archaic nature of the systems that I was currently using in real estate. Back in 2017, when I started investing, they did the first real estate fractionalization deal. So that's a big topic that's been talked about lately is like the fractionalization of real estate. And what they did was essentially broke that property up into multiple different pieces so anybody could buy any denomination of the asset. So if you only had $1,000 to invest, you could invest $1,000 and own that proportionate share of the property and get that proportionate share of the net operating income. So I thought that was interesting. Maybe we could look to crowdfund our properties this way, but there was something that I knew there was some overlap. I didn't fully see the picture yet. A couple years later, I realized, or I learned about non-fungible tokens. There was like this big NFT bubble, which basically there was like JPEGs that were trading for millions of dollars. And
Right.
I
And
realized
people remember Board Ape or whatever it was that.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I got in really early, and I actually was telling my dad like the first time I saw NFTs, I knew that it was going to be kind of a bubble, but I knew the technology that would emerge from this would be used to tokenize real world assets. And the reason is because what non-fungible means is just unique. Every non-fungible token is unique based on the different attributes that make it unique. So like a JPEG might have a top hat and a cigar, and that's why it's unique. A piece of property is also non-fungible. Every property is unique based on the different attributes, the rent roll, the zoning, the unit mix, unit count, location, etc. So I realized like the way they tokenized the property in 2017 wasn't fully correct because they used a fungible token. That's not telling the full story. You actually need a non-fungible token to digitize real estate properly. And furthermore, the deed to your home is just a piece of paper that validates ownership of your most valuable asset. And that's also non-fungible. That should be tokenized so it could be provably authentic and original, and that should trade on a distributed ledger so that it's fully transparent and immutable, like I discussed before. So that was kind of the light bulb moment. At the time I discovered NFTs in 2020, I sent my dad this whole long-winded email like, "Hey, this is the future of real estate. Like, I think there's something here. I want to like explore this further." And he responded with one sentence. He said, "Son, I think you should stick to your day job." He didn't get it, and I mean, it was hard to understand. Obviously, it's eventually he came around and he realized I was
Okay.
on the right path, and he's been very supportive and very helpful, and he's always been a big mentor to me. But yeah, so that was kind of the moment. I was like, I think
Okay.
I had a very straight line path to success doing real estate development, but I realized that I had something more to essentially give, and I saw something that others didn't. So I just
Indeed.
I dove right in.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it all came together for you. I mean, you were already thinking about real estate in those terms, and it just sort of dovetailed with exactly an interest that you had in
Yeah.
blockchain. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just uniquely positioned with having the knowledge I have about real estate and blockchain, where I was able to kind of put two and two together. So it's honestly a dream come true for me. It's combining the two passions that I had, because I was very passionate about real estate and development, what I was doing, and then I just fell in love with blockchain. So it's nice to marry the two.
indeed. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how it's going for you. We covered an agreement you made with Bergen County, I think last year, to digitize their property records. What can you tell me about that? Is that still active? What's the status of your work with Bergen County?
Yep, that's still active. It's the largest blockchain deed initiative in US history. And the
Right.
goal there is to migrate their deed processing and mortgage processing onto the blockchain in order to create that permanent, immutable chain of title that will preserve record integrity, help to mitigate things like deed fraud and mortgage fraud, bring trust and transparency to citizens, to institutions, lenders, title companies, everybody who interacts with county data will now be able to verify it and work off of our system to create, efficiencies and help prevent fraud, help prevent some of these ransomware attacks, or help to mitigate some of them.
Okay. And how does it work for Bergen County? I mean, I'm imagining there's an initial cost. Is this going to save them money over the long run? What's the economic benefit, if any, for Bergen County?
Yeah, so it actually should help to save title companies money, or
Okay.
actually consumers or
Hmm.
buyers, sellers money within title, because it'll help to kind of automate that title process, and so it should create a ton of efficiencies there, and it should create a ton of efficiencies for property owners that might need access to liquidity in this new tokenized economy that's
Hmm.
emerging. So
Hmm.
it's really to help citizens. They
Okay.
Bergen County wanted to protect their citizens. They wanted to put this in place for protection against deed fraud and mortgage fraud, but also to help save them money, create efficiencies, and help them kind of be that bridge to the digital world that's coming quickly. That should help, help facilitate a ton of stuff: quicker settlements, quicker closings, cheaper costs, more efficiencies, quicker access to capital, things like that.
Okay. All of which I'm guessing makes the county more attractive to buying and people who want to buy and sell real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. Bergen County's been a big believer in just adopting technology as quickly as possible. They actually were the first county in the state to put in to accept e-file before
Okay.
e-file became mandated across the state.
Hmm.
So they've always kind of prided themselves on like being ahead of the curve with technology, because they believe it helps their citizens if they're ahead of the curve. A lot of governments move slow, and that's not their reputation.
Okay. And it is one of the biggest, perhaps the biggest county in New Jersey. Where else are you working? I think I read that you were in talks with some other government entities in New Jersey and also in some other states. Am I right about that? Or where are you in terms of expansion beyond Bergen County?
Yeah, that's correct. So we're New Jersey's our home base, so we're speaking to a lot of counties here, and also, being a real estate developer, I just know the landscape really well throughout the state of New Jersey, and I know the formatting and stuff like that. So we're looking to scale throughout New Jersey. We have a bunch of other municipalities under contract as well,
Okay.
and in the state, and we're also speaking to a lot of other counties beyond New Jersey. There's a few other states we're working in right now. We have a couple contracts that I can't announce here, that we're
Oh,
going
go
to
ahead.
announce soon. Um,
Just
but
between the two of us.
yeah, yeah, it's in the Midwest. I'll say
Okay.
in Kentucky and Kansas,
Okay.
actually, and then in Wyoming, we're doing a little bit of work. Wyoming is an interesting state because they're very far ahead of the curve when it comes to blockchain adoption. The senator over there, Lummis, her team has been behind a lot of the digital asset legislation that's been passed in front of Congress. They also are the first state to issue their own state-backed stable token. So there's a lot of cool things we could do in Wyoming, and it's so different than New Jersey.
Mhm.
For comparison, the population of Wyoming is around the same population as Bergen County, New
I was
Jersey.
just going to say, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Wyoming's great. And then we're looking to get a presence in Florida right now. There's a
Okay.
few states that are similar, like in a similar boat, where they're further ahead with blockchain legislation adoption, and that helps as far as like the education component that's required when educating government officials about blockchain and the difference between blockchain and crypto, and like FTX, that whole implosion that happened there.
Right.
So yeah, we're targeting states that want adoption. We're also speaking to a couple foreign nations as well.
Oh,
One of
okay.
the cool things there, or something interesting, is that a lot of countries outside of the US are in their land record systems, or even more disarray than the United States.
Hmm.
Very paper based. An example, we spent some time in Puerto Rico early on, and which has become kind of like the Silicon Valley for crypto people. And a lot of their records were based in paper. And when we were there, we
Mhm.
learned that the hurricane that happened in, I believe it was 2019, washed away a ton of their paper records.
Oh my
So there's
goodness.
all these title disputes that are still going on today because none of their records were backed up. They were all on paper and they're all destroyed.
Okay. And what does it matter? Does the technological infrastructure of an area matter? I mean, for example, New Jersey, the Murphy administration has made a big deal about making sure that the state is the home for technological innovation. Is that how necessary is it that the state or the municipality or wherever you're working in has the kind of infrastructure available to do these kinds of things,
Yeah,
or doesn't it matter at all?
no, it does matter. It's very
Okay.
important because that's how they decide on their budgets. You know, that they want to put money towards innovation, technology, blockchain, AI, then that's a state where we want to be because they have earmarked dollars for that type of technology. Some states don't understand the significance and they don't
Mhm.
care about keeping up with technology and they don't allocate those dollars for innovation.
Okay. All right. And that was I was going to ask you then about just what the reception is when you talk about this kind of thing. I wonder if there's if you're hearing sort of skepticism about crypto, skepticism about AI, or just sort of skepticism about technology in general. It sounds like the latter.
Yeah, yeah. So the thing is like we started the company in 2021. In 2022, the FTX collapse happened that I just
Right.
referenced. So
Mhm.
that was that big Ponzi scheme, and that cast a black cloud over the industry as a whole. So trying to sell this technology to governments in that time period was almost impossible. So what we realized was it was about framing the problem, and really like blockchain is just a part of our solution. We're trying to modernize property records and bring trust, integrity and preserve records. Blockchain and AI are just part of that tech stack, you know.
Mhm.
So we usually don't even mention blockchain until a couple meetings in, and
Okay.
really just an addition to our database. It creates a stronger database for us, and that's kind of the key, framing it in a way that they understand and doesn't scare them.
Okay. Are there any sort of regulatory challenges that you see, either in individual states or from the federal government? I mean, there's a lot of talk about reining in cryptocurrency and AI on the state level. The
Mhm.
administration in Washington seems to be more open to those kinds of things. Have you run into sort of regulatory roadblocks that you have to overcome?
We haven't yet, and I think
Okay.
that actually regulation is a good thing. They're trying to pass the Clarity Act right now. Hopefully, that'll pass this year and give some kind of guidelines and regulations for blockchain or crypto-based companies. I think that's what we want. You know, we're working with governments. We don't want to be operating in the wild, wild west. We want to
Mhm.
know what we can do, what we're allowed to do, and while we're doing that, we could actually help shape policy. We could help shape legislation in our favor in ways that like could bring us to shepherd us into the future that I'm talking about.
Mhm. Okay. I have to ask you this. I listen to the radio. There's a commercial about several commercials about something called title theft, which they claim that someone can steal the title for your home out from under you without you even knowing it. First of all, is that a thing? And second of all, is this the kind of technology that can prevent that sort of criminal activity?
Yeah. So first of all, yes, that's our goal to try to
Okay.
prevent that type of activity. There's nuance to what you're talking about. Technically, you can't steal somebody's title because
Okay.
once that fraud is figured out, the title reverts back to the proper owner. So you
Okay.
can't fraudulently actually take property. But the
Mhm.
problem is it's a legal battle. Once you discover
Right.
that somebody tried to steal title on your property, you have to hire attorneys, you have to go to court, you have to bear that expense to
Okay.
fight. So people do it. It happens all the time and it's happening more and more frequently. I think part of the reason is because of the rise in generative AI, where you could spin up fake deeds, you could spin up fake supporting documentation, fake
Right.
bank letters, payoff letters, etc., fake like death certificates, affidavits, all this stuff to tell us a compelling story to transfer title into your name. And then you take a fake deed, you go to a lender and you borrow money against it, and then with no intention of paying that mortgage back. So the lenders get hurt as well. You know, there's mortgage fraud is very common, added on top of deed fraud. The fraudster is looking to monetize it. They don't care about the actual
Right.
asset. They're just looking to flip it or
Mhm.
collateralize it to make money. So it's a growing issue. Um, Technically, they will say like you can't steal someone's title out from under them because it's rightfully their title, but that doesn't do someone any good when it actually happens to them and they have to fight to
Right.
get the property back. And then a lot of times, like there's irreparable damage that happens, like you take out a
Sure.
mortgage or you start building on the property or something, and that causes a ton of issues.
Okay. All right. Well, let's hope you can solve that problem and put those
Mhm.
people out of business. Finally, before I let you go, I'm curious, just from your observation, from your experience, what your assessment of the real estate market in this area right now. I mean, it's been a tremendous driver of the state's economy. Do you see it continuing? Do you have any sense for what the attitude of people is about buying and selling real estate, and particularly commercial real estate in this
Yeah.
era?
I think it's pretty dependent on interest rates. It's been a pretty high rate environment over the last several years, and I know a lot of developers that have kind of gone underwater that
Sure.
were just building at the wrong time. That being said, rents are continuing to increase, which raises the value of commercial properties. Interest rates are beginning to come down. I think that that's like a good or double-edged sword, sort of, like because when interest rates come down, it should incentivize more sellers to sell, but it'll also increase the price. So like
Mhm.
prices will probably go up if interest rates come down, but more inventory should come onto the market.
Okay.
One of the biggest problems is the restriction in inventory because anybody who's locked in a low rate mortgage isn't selling because where are
Right.
you going to go? You have to, take out a mortgage somewhere else at a much
Mhm.
higher rate. So it's basically dependent on that. See where interest rates, if they start to or if they continue to trickle down. I think that'll be helpful in just like more transaction volume happening.
Okay.
But the real estate market is still very strong. The home prices are going for record numbers. Rental prices are continuing to increase. So throughout the state, I would say it's still relatively strong.
Okay, and I was going to ask you about doing business in New Jersey too. I mean, it has been an active real estate market, and we talked before about the focus on technology. What's it like doing business in the state these days?
In terms of blockchain or real estate,
Your business,
my business.
as the CEO, co-founder of Balcony. How do you feel about owning and running a business here?
It's good. I love New Jersey, even if like it's not just because I'm born and raised in New Jersey. It's because of, like you said, Governor Murphy put a budget towards innovation. He wants New Jersey to be the most innovative state in the country. I think that'll continue in this new administration. I think that they are ahead of the curve when it comes to blockchain adoption and new technology. I actually met with Senator Booker and Senator Kim's staff in DC when
Okay.
they were passing the Genius Act, which was the stable token bill. And everyone on the Hill, not just like the New Jersey representatives, were very much keen to understanding this technology. It's
Okay.
become bipartisan and it's become, everyone's realizing the importance of it. So that's good to see. And I love that New Jersey is kind of like ahead of the curve or kind of leading the way in this stuff because, like it just, New Jersey's always kind of tried to put themselves as a competitor
Sure.
nationwide when
Right.
like competing against California and New York. And I think New Jersey is in very good position to actually potentially even lead the nation in blockchain adoption, which is and AI adoption, which is pretty cool.
hmm Okay, great. Well, we will leave it there. That's a good spot for it. I hope you come back and tell us a little bit more about some of the other developments that you're working on at some point. That'd be great
Yeah,
to get an
I'd love
update.
to. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
great. We'll try that. Dan Silverman, CEO, co-founder of Balcony. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe, everyone.
Take care.